leave you this morning, we ask that you join us in sending love and strength to our beloved Today colleague, Sheinelle Jones, and her family. Sheinelle announced on Friday her husband of nearly 18 years, Uche Oj, died after a long battle with an aggressive form of brain cancer.
What happened at Sheinelle Jones' husband's funeral wasn't just heartbreaking, it left everyone in the room still, almost breathless. The space was full of people, friends, family, co-workers, and loved ones. But when Sheinelle stood up to speak, it was as if time paused. No flashing cameras, no attention-seeking noise, just her calm and steady voice filling the silence. Her words didn't sound rehearsed or perfect, but they were real, powerful, and filled with raw emotion. And as she spoke, something shifted in the room. People didn't just listen, they felt every word. Everyone knew she was grieving. That was expected. But what took people by surprise was the depth behind her words, the hidden strength, the years of quiet struggle, the devotion that never wavered, and the quiet suffering she had carried for so long without making it public. Her speech was more than a goodbye.
I love those kids more than anything else in this world, and was just so proud of his kids. It was like, he was that dad that was on the sideline at every soccer game. He was at all of the concerts and the recitals. He was that guy.
It was a window into a love story built over time and tested in ways few could understand. Soon after, that emotional moment began spreading online. Not because it was crafted for social media or backed by flashy headlines, but because it was honest. The more people saw it, the more it moved them. Many said they had never seen anyone speak about loss with such warmth, poise, and truth. But to fully understand why Sheinelle's words touched so many hearts, we have to go back to the love story that began long before the world ever knew her name. Before Sheinelle Jones became a familiar face on morning television, before she brought energy and warmth to millions of homes across America through the Today Show, she was just a young woman from Philadelphia. It was there she met her future husband, Uche Oj, known simply as Uch to those closest to him. Their relationship didn't start with glitz or glamour. There was no fame, no cameras, no red carpets. Just two people who connected in a real and simple way.
He had a beautiful, deep, abiding faith.
Yes, he did.
Every single day of this fight, and you could see it in his eyes. He was an extraordinary person.
Wasn't in the public eye, and he didn't want to be. He was the kind of man who made people feel at ease without needing attention. Sheinelle used to joke that even in college, Uch looked like a grown man, calm, collected, and wise beyond his years. Where she was high energy and expressive, he was steady and peaceful. That contrast worked perfectly. They balanced each other, and over time, they built something strong, something that didn't need to be shared with the world to be real. There was a story she once told about a Cabbage Patch doll from her childhood, something that might seem silly to others, but it meant the world to her. But she embraced it completely just to see her smile. That moment, small as it may have seemed, was a symbol of the way he loved her quietly, deeply, and without condition. Sheinelle's grandmother once told her, "If someone loves you for who you are not, who you're pretending to be, don't let go." That advice stayed with her, even when she didn't realize how much it would mean later in life. In 2007, Sheinelle and Uch got married. There were no celebrity headlines, no glamorous tabloid coverage. It was simply a beautiful day filled with laughter, dancing, and love.
We talk a lot about how this place is like a family, and this morning we have some heartbreaking news about someone who is very dear to us here at Today.
So let's take a deep breath. With profound sadness, we share this morning that Uche Oj, the husband of our dear friend and Today co-host Sheinelle Jones, has passed away after a courageous battle with an aggressive form of brain cancer called glioblastoma. There are no words for the pain that we feel for Sheinelle and their 3 young children. Uche was an incredible person. We all loved him.
Over the years, they created a life raising kids, sharing holidays, building traditions, and holding each other up through every high and low. Like all couples, they faced challenges, but they did it as a team. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was strong. It had roots. It had history. And that's what made saying goodbye so hard. For many viewers, Sheinelle was always the bright spot on their screens every morning. Her energy, her smile, Her presence, those things felt familiar and comforting. But in early 2025, something changed. Sheinelle suddenly disappeared from the Today Show. No explanation, no emotional send-off. One day she was there, the next she wasn't. Fans noticed immediately. The chair she usually filled now felt empty. Something was missing, and not just visually, it felt different. Viewers took to social media to ask questions. Where's Sheinelle? Is she okay? When is she coming back? The network continued without her, bringing in guest hosts and carrying on with regular segments. But anyone who had followed Sheinelle's journey could feel the shift. Her absence wasn't just physical, it was emotional.
On this big shoot out on the water, and on that shoot, let's take a look at her multitasking skills, because we hear there was a moment on the boat when you had to jump into mode in the middle of the shoot. Take a look.
Yeah, soccer practice is canceled. I have to go.
I'm surprised you got service out of the
We're like out on the water. Kyan was out by himself trying to get to soccer practice. And it's funny because our producer, the fact that she gets it too, she has kids, so she just recognizes that she thought that was so funny because this is what we do. People think, we're juggling all over the place.
But it's so real.
And I've got the life vest on in the middle of the sea.
That is funny to see you like that with your hot yellow phone. I mean, just
I'm like, soccer practice is canceled. I gotta go.
Right, but you have to do it. And I think so often we try to hide what's really going on. You're on a shoot, soccer practice is canceled, then you have to make a call.
This is real life.
Happy International Day of Women.
At first, there were only rumors. Some thought she was taking personal time to rest. Others guessed she might be working on a secret project or considering stepping away from TV altogether. But the truth was something much deeper and far more painful. Sheinelle was facing a devastating reality, one she had chosen to keep private for as long as she could. Then came a quiet Instagram post. No picture, no video. Just a short message: I'm taking time to deal with a family health matter. Simple, direct. But for those who had been wondering, it was a moment of clarity. Something serious was happening. What no one knew yet was that her husband, Ush, had been diagnosed with glioblastoma, an aggressive and deadly form of brain cancer. Behind that one sentence were months of silent battles, long hospital visits, difficult conversations, sleepless nights. Sheinelle was still showing up on television, smiling and laughing, conducting interviews like always, all while her personal world was falling apart. She didn't talk about it publicly, not because she was hiding, but because she was protecting her family's peace. She was giving Uch his dignity and allowing her children space to live without the pressure of public attention. Even before the final goodbye, she was already grieving. Yet she did it with a grace and quiet strength that few people even realized she possessed. Every day was a juggling act. Sheinelle would help her children get ready for school, then sit in a makeup chair, preparing to go live on television. In between segments, she took calls from doctors, handled medications, and scheduled treatments. She was doing everything: working, parenting, caregiving, without letting it show. Some nights, she barely slept. Some mornings, she forced herself to smile because there simply wasn't time to break down. She didn't ask for sympathy. She just carried the weight quietly. As Uch's condition worsened, the days became more difficult. His speech slowed, his body weakened, and their conversations grew shorter. But through it all, Sheinelle stayed present. Even on the hard days, especially on the hard days she showed up. She created moments of joy for their kids. She found ways to laugh, even through the pain. And when she stood beside her husband, she made sure he felt respected, loved, and never alone. On May 23, 2025, everything changed. That morning, the Today Show opened differently. The usual cheerful tone was replaced with a quiet, emotional message. Savannah Guthrie's voice was soft, and after a brief pause, she shared the heartbreaking news. We are heartbroken to share that our dear friend Sheinelle has lost her beloved husband, Uche Oje. The studio fell silent. Savannah's voice cracked. Hoda tried to hold back tears. Craig bowed his head. These weren't just co-hosts. They were a family grieving together, live on national television. Soon, clips of Sheinelle and Uch began to surface: family photos, holiday moments, sweet throwback videos. People who had only seen pieces of their life now understood how much depth was behind those images. Every smile, every hug, now meant so much more. But nothing compared to what happened at Uche's funeral. Sheinelle stood before everyone, family, friends, colleagues, and began to speak. The room went quiet. Not because anyone told them to be, but because the energy changed the moment she opened her mouth. She didn't read from a paper. Her words weren't memorized. They came from her heart. Her voice was firm, but her emotions were clear. She didn't focus on his illness. She talked about the love they shared. The late-night dancing in the kitchen. The road trips that felt like adventures. The calm strength he brought into every room. She told stories that made people laugh, even as they wiped away tears. She spoke about who he was, not what happened to him. It wasn't a eulogy. It was a love letter. Even those who thought they were prepared to say goodbye weren't ready for that speech. It hit deeply, cutting through the surface and speaking directly to the soul. Soon, clips of her tribute spread online. Viewers from all over the world said they had never seen anything so touching. It wasn't because she was a TV star. It was because she was real. After the funeral, Sheinelle didn't do a press tour. She didn't share a long caption or post a slideshow. She simply wrote, "Thank you for all of your love and support." No photos, no hashtags. Just a few words, and somehow that said everything. People noticed. Fellow journalists applauded her dignity. Fans respected her privacy. The Today Show family posted messages of love and support. But Sheinelle remained quiet. She let the silence speak for her. In doing so, she reminded everyone that grief doesn't always need to be public. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply show up with grace. Even in her silence, her story reached far and wide. Strangers who had never met her found themselves reflecting. Some called their spouses just to say, "I love you." Others hugged their children a little tighter that night. Social media filled with messages from viewers who were moved not just by the loss, but by the way Sheinelle carried it with such strength and love. Old photos of her and Uche began to resurface. One in particular stood out, a casual picture from years ago with the caption, "We're just getting started." Now, it felt like a quiet goodbye. It didn't hurt because it was dramatic. It hurt because it was honest. This wasn't some headline-driven tragedy or celebrity scandal. It was a story about love, loss, and courage. A woman who built a life with someone she loved deeply. A woman who lost that person and still found the strength to walk forward with quiet dignity. And that's why her story resonated so strongly. Because at its core, this wasn't a story about death, it was a story about life. It was about choosing to love fully, even when there are no guarantees. About showing the world that strength doesn't always mean being loud. Sometimes it's in the silent moments, the whispered jokes, the hand held tightly, the simple "I'm here" when everything is falling apart. One fan wrote, "Sheinelle taught me more about love in silence than most people do shouting it from rooftops." Another said, "She reminded me to focus on what really matters before it's too late." In the end, it wasn't just a funeral. It wasn't just a speech. It was a reminder that the love we give, the memories we create, and the quiet strength we carry through the hardest times, that's what stays behind. That's what lasts. And through it all, Sheinelle showed the world what it truly means to love, to lose, and to keep walking forward, even when your heart is broken. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart the way it touched ours, please take a moment to reflect on the power of love, family, and quiet strength. Sheinelle Jones reminded us that behind every public figure is a private life filled with real emotions, real struggles, and real love. Her tribute to her husband wasn't just beautiful, it was a powerful reminder of how deeply we can love and how gracefully we can carry grief. If you're going through something similar, know that you're not alone. Sometimes, the quietest moments speak the loudest. And sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who never say a word but keep going anyway. If this video meant something to you, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below and tell us how this story made you feel, or share your own tribute to someone you've loved and lost. We read every message, and your words matter. Until next time, Take care of yourselves and each other. Hold your loved ones close. And remember, real love never fades. It lives on in the memories, the moments, and the legacy we leave behind.